What's up, everybody? Will here from Flow Candy. Today, we're going to be talking about list growth. I'm here with my partner, Brian. What's up, Brian?
What's up, everybody? How's it going?
Cool. So, we're going to dive in today and we're going to share sort of all of our tactics. The titles of today's presentation is How to Grow Your Email List. I'm going to share 5 ways you can increase the size of your emails and hopefully make more revenue. Just a reminder who this is for. So if you're a brand or an online store, e-commerce store, D2C store that's looking to elevate email, lifecycle, Klaviyo, whatever email marketing program you're using, or you're an agency or a freelancer, or you work at an agency and you're looking to help your clients elevate their email and lifecycle marketing. All right, a little bit about me if you don't know who I am one of the co-founders here at Flow Candy. Flow Candy is a Klaviyo and email and lifecycle marketing, retention marketing agency. We've worked with hundreds of stores now. I'm also a former store owner myself. I've owned a couple of Shopify stores over the past couple of years. But over the past 5 years, I've mostly been working on Flow Candy, and we've worked with all sorts of stores in the D2C space to the enterprise space, from startups who have no list to $100 million stores that have 5 million people plus on their list. I've kind of seen it all at this point. So that's a little bit about me, but that's enough of that. Let's move on and let's just talk about what we're going to be talking about in the next 30 minutes. All right. So I'm going to show you guys how to get more subscribers into your email list. I truly believe that the bigger the list size, especially if they have buyer's intent, normally the more revenue you can make from email marketing with your store or SMS marketing. I'm going to show you all the secrets that we've sort of used over the past couple of years. Again, been focused solely on working with e-commerce brands for the last 500 stores. Excuse me, five the 5 years, 300 plus stores. Also, I'm going to be showing you some real live examples with real stores. So none of this is not going to be super theoretical. And I'm going to share all of our resources, playbooks, systems, anything that I show you that we use internally at Flow Candy. I'm going to give away to you for free, and I'm going to be showing you that as we go through this presentation. All right. So big picture, my promise is to show you a very detailed view of how a top email marketing agency like Flow Candy grows lists for our clients so that you can copy it and implement in your own store, your own agency, or if you're an employee at a store or an agency. That way you can stay ahead of the competition and get more revenue. All right. First off, we do have two special announcements. So stay to the very end of the webinar. We'll be going over these. Super excited about this. One is like a very cool special announcement. Another is like a sort of a cool resource we're going to share that can help you. So stay till the end to sort of see what we talk about there. First off, let's just kind of check in here though. If you're an agency or you're a freelancer, are you sort of just unhappy with the performance of the email marketing for your clients, or you're worried that you're going to get fired by your client because maybe you're not making enough revenue, especially if you're a freelancer, that could affect your income, or if you're an agency owner, it could affect your income. Do you feel like your process isn't good enough? If you're a freelancer or an agency out there and you're trying to get more clients, like you don't have the right tools to sort of to convince a client to work with you. And again, worst case, are you worried that like all of this is going to cause you to go out of business and you have to go back and get a job? If you're a brand, are you just worried that email marketing is not making enough money? Even worse, like people on your team, maybe it's your boss or your peers, they're kind of nagging you about it. Like, hey, how can we get email marketing sales up? How can we grow our email list? And not only is this causing you anxiety, but it's taking up a lot of your time because you're having to like answer these questions and have these conversations. And worst case, yourself, you're probably worried that you're going to get fired and have to go out and find a new job. And I find that the real problem here is that you don't really have a strategy to increase the size of your lists. Again, it's my sort of philosophy that if you are increasing the size of your list, generally the bigger the size of your list, the more revenue you can earn from email. A lot of you just think, oh, I'll just run more ads, you know. But there's other things you can do just besides running ads to get more traffic to grow the size, to grow your list. And once you start making this shift, once you start implementing some of this stuff, you're going to increase that list, which will drive more awareness to your brand or your client's brand. Because that list is bigger and you're driving more awareness, generally you should be able to drive more sales and more email marketing sales or more revenue attributed from email marketing or SMS marketing or some form of lifecycle marketing. And so that's like sort of what I think these two core things that if you can sort of unpack what we're doing today, it's going to really help you guys with your clients or your own brand store. So let's jump into it. So there's five things I'm going to go over here today that can really help you increase the size of that list. And these are tested and proven tactics that we're using inside my company, FlowCandy, right now. Again, I'm going to share everything with you, and I'm going to walk you through each tactic right now. So is there anything you want to say, Brian, or before we move on?
No, let's jump into the tactics, and I'll chime in once we get there.
Cool. And keep in mind, if you have any questions or comments, just drop them in the chat. We're going to be pausing occasionally to answer those questions, but just drop them in and I'll get to them eventually. All right. So tactic number one is to optimize your pop-ups. This is sort of a no-brainer, but I see a lot of people, or at least I log into a lot of brand stores, and it's like they're like, "Oh, our pop-ups are good. Don't worry about that." And then we log in and we see actually they're really not good. As you can see, this is one of my clients this morning. I like to see those pop-up conversion rates over 3%. This one's around over 4%. A lot of stores I'm logging into, it's like 2%, 1%, 2.5%. And there's a lot of low hanging fruit things you can do. A lot of people just think, oh, I'll just optimize the copy, or I'll change the color of the button, or I'll add a new image. And yes, those things work a little bit, but I'm going to talk about just some low hanging logical things you can do that many stores sort of forget to do, or agencies. So the first one is sort of optimizing for mobile and desktop. So whenever we build a pop-up for a client, and again, these pop-ups, let's say it's a pop-up that goes to something like a pre-purchase flow, our team will do two pop-ups actually. They're the same offer, it's the same pop-up, but one is for mobile and one is for desktop. So you really get a very, you design the pop-up just for that medium, and that typically will give a better experience to the prospect, and they're more likely to subscribe. We've seen this a lot of times, just increase conversion rate. Another thing too is just using the right timings and frequencies. And so let me jump into one right now and just show you where people mess things up. We'll go into the desktop version here. I see a lot of just low-hanging fruit mistakes with the logic, what I would call the targeting and behavior. And I'm doing this in Klaviyo. It doesn't really matter which tool you're using. I see a lot of the same mistakes sort of across platforms, but we like to be very specific with what we're doing here, like how we're triggering, when they trigger, the frequency, the devices. We'll even trigger it off certain pages and stuff like that. And I see a lot of people, they just have it triggering immediately, or they're not excluding it to certain profiles, or they're not careful about which URLs it's being triggered off of, or certain locations. So that's what we're doing. We get very, very clear with the targeting and behavior. And I see, again, almost every time I log in and audit an account that really hasn't had like a high level person in there optimizing it, there's just little low hanging fruits that can, stuff like this targeting behavior stuff that can just literally increase that conversion rate overnight a lot of the times. So we went over the rules, we went over the timings and the frequencies. We also went over, or we're doing a lot of two-step stuff now, where it's like SMS opt-in as well, and testing stuff on the success pages. Like I've also done stuff where we put like a discount code on the actual success page of the form. So just little tweaks like that, I think a lot of times can increase the conversion rate or increase sort of the performance of your sort of pre-purchase conversion. There's also some other things you can do. See if I can pull this up. I like to go in whenever I'm working with a client. I like to go into Google Analytics. I don't know if you guys can see this. And I like to look at their actual top landing pages and exit pages in Google Analytics. And I want to make sure, I'll go into private browsing and I will make sure that that pop-up triggers on those top landing pages and exit pages. Again, you can go to Google Analytics. This is still, this report is still available in GA4. I think it's like something like engagement, landing and exit or something like that. But yeah, I see that mistake a lot too. Like I've logged into certain client stores and was like, oh, you have, 30% of your traffic going to this blog post, or it's going to this specific product or collection page, but yet they don't have a pop-up triggering on that page, and they're missing out on a huge opportunity to capture more people. So again, this seems like this is literally the basics of list growth, but I see so many people sort of do this wrong, and they're not super dialed in on how they're capturing people into their list. And so yeah, I think just really buckling down, making sure everything, really pay attention to detail, to the logic of these pop-ups, and make sure it's triggering on each page. So I'll walk through a real life example. I'm also going to share like our checklist that we use here at FlowCandy. Every time we build a new pop-up, we follow the same checklist to ensure that those mistakes are not made, to ensure that we are following the right logic, the right steps. And so, again, this is our exact process. We have like a 14-step process on how to do a pop-up. And there's a heavy quality control piece too, where we are, really not just double checking logic and stuff like that, but also the grammar and the size and quality control. Like I said, I love to test things in private browsing or incognito, just to make sure it's all firing correctly. So that is our exact process, and I'm going to share this with you. If you guys you can go to this URL or scan it with this QR code, and you can totally steal that checklist that I just shared with you. Again, we use ClickUp. So if you use ClickUp, it might be easier for you to implement, but you can totally swipe a lot of that and put it in your own system, whether it's like Trello or Asana or Monday.com or something like that. Again, just go to this URL or scan this QR code with your phone, and you can download this resource sheet where share that and a bunch of other things I'm about to go over too. So yeah, that's my sort of tips on tactic number 1 in terms of optimizing your forms. Do you have any questions so far?
No questions, but there's one bit that I would like to add here in terms of the opt-in forms. At the end of the day, this webinar is how to grow your email list, right? And so we're going to talk about a lot of these tactics of optimizing and things like that, and the other channels and whatnot. But the thing to remember here is that growing your email list is not necessarily the end all kind of goal, right? We're trying to create more conversions. We're trying to grow the store in terms of who's actually buying. We're also trying to mitigate making sure that the pop-up doesn't have an effect on the conversion rate of the landing page or the website itself. And so these are all things as you mature as a brand or as you mature as like a freelancer or agency that you need to be really aware of as you go through and test all those things that Will was talking about, because that's really, at the end of the day, the one of the more important metrics is going to be how many people are actually purchasing that subscribed through that opt-in. And so you want to make sure that you're really aware of like the macro effects of all the things that you're testing. And so sometimes you need to be a little bit careful, and you need to really make sure that you're communicating with whoever else is kind of responsible for these different parts of the website, especially if you're like a freelancer or an agency coming in. Make sure that you're not living in just like a little bubble and not, addressing the other pieces that you could be affecting by how you change or test the pop-up.
Yep. Good stuff. I think I didn't really touch on that too. There is like a conversion rate piece to this as well. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Let's move on to test all capture mediums. So a lot of people use pop-ups, but there's all sorts of other ways to capture subscribers that I think every brand should test. Some make more sense than others. But one of the ones we do a lot of is these quizzes. I think quizzes are great. There's a tool that we use a lot called Octane AI, where and you guys, if you've probably seen quizzes on different stores before. But it's such the reason I really like quizzes is, one, because you're capturing their information, but there's a couple things going on here psychologically, and from like a CRM perspective. First off, you're gathering a lot of zero party data on these prospects that you can use to further personalize the emails later on. So every answer that they basically, or every question they answer in the quiz can literally be a custom profile in Klaviyo that you can segment off of. You can filter, you can edit templates off of. So it's really cool. But also, like, psychologically, they're investing more in your brand by, it's one thing to just do 1 or 2 clicks to get a 15% off discount code. But if you go through like 10 or 15 steps to fill out a quiz, again, psychologically, they've now invested more time into your brand, and they should be more invested in becoming a customer. So I really like the quizzes. It doesn't make sense for every store, but if you have something, or your client is selling something that requires some education or decision making, highly recommend the quizzes. Anything else you want to add in on quizzes, Brian?
No, I don't think so.
Cool. There's also another cool tool out there called FormToro that we've used. It's a third-party form app that's just a little bit more dynamic. It almost allows you to kind of do some of the quiz type stuff or zero-party data collection type stuff inside the actual pop-up. So I would, I would definitely test it. It's something that I've tested like once or twice, and yeah, it works pretty well. Also, just inside Klaviyo, there's more than just pop-ups. There's different mediums you can use. You can use a full page. Full pages work great. A lot of times, those can have a higher conversion rate than just the pop-up itself. So what that would be is it would just display on the entire page. There's also flyouts where it like slides in, or it's like slides in below, so it kind of doesn't interrupt the experience or hurt conversion rates, or like what Brian was talking about earlier. I also would consider testing embeds too, especially if you have a lot of content that is driving traffic to your store or your client's store. You should try those inside the blog pages as well, because again, it doesn't really disrupt the experience that someone is having on the site, but it still gives them that option to opt in. Definitely test those mediums. Another one that I've been seeing people use is this sort of Gatsby Instagram for SMS app. This is a pretty cool new app. Let's see if I can pull it. Gatsby AI. I think that's what it's called. Let's see if I can find features. I don't know where it is, but there's a cool app. There's a cool feature here where you could basically, oh, here it is. You can basically take anybody that is DMing your brand on Instagram. A lot of your clients are probably, or if you're a store, a lot of you guys are running Instagram ads, and you probably have people having conversations with you on Instagram. With Gatsby, there's some cool apps that allow you literally to turn these sort of chat conversations going on in Instagram into SMS subscribers. So this is a cool new little app that I would test out, especially if you're running a lot of Instagram, if you're doing a lot of Instagram ads or having a lot of conversations on Instagram.
And just a quick shout out, actually, Brett is here right now. The
cool.
founder of Gatsby is just commented. So, hey, Brett, glad to have you here. Yeah. Everyone go follow Brett. He has a lot of good stuff on everything that Gatsby's doing.
Awesome. Another thing we're doing a lot too is like these sort of like cross medium list growth, where you can like, I don't know if you've seen us do this, Ryan, where we'll like put a banner in an email, just like literally like below a navigation in the email, like, hey, sign up for SMS. And it will only be like the list or the segment will literally be for anybody who's an email subscriber, but not an SMS subscriber. Done it vice versa too. Like, hey, any SMS subscriber, most SMS subscribers are probably subscribed to email, but you'd be surprised sometimes if it's like a more younger store where there's a lot of SMS subscribers.
Yeah.
I
think that's a really good point though, as well. It's just, so we're saying test all capture mediums, but like the meta of all of this is always that work for your brand. That's always in the asterisks, right? You know, that, or in the parentheses afterwards of what is, so if you are selling, you know, resin that you use to fix your boat, you're probably not going to use Gatsby, to be honest. Sorry, Brett, you know, because I don't know if there's a ton of like people that are on Instagram that are also like older kind of carpenter guys that are working on their boat all the time, you know, because I use that as an actual example of a client we've had in the past, because that's not where their audience is. You know, their audience is probably on Facebook more so, is probably, you know, a little bit older. And the same thing goes for FormToro or, you know, Octane AI. When you're building a quiz, there are certain things that you need a quiz for. Maybe, you know, like a skincare or a hair care or something like that, to find out the right products. Are you oily or dry skin? Is your hair, you know, coily, straight? You know, all those different levels of the type, you know, the type of hair you might have. And that's an area that a quiz is a really good example. But if you are selling jeans, you know, if you're like Muggsy or something like that, and it's like, you really have 3 or 4 styles and 3 or 4 colors, that's just a preference. It's not something you need to like quiz someone on to kind of do that. And so all of these come down to, how do you meet your customers where they are already, and then use the technology that exists to amplify the way that you're kind of engaging with them. This is all a customer experience type thing. A really good example that comes to mind for me is Feastables, and the way that they set up their text to opt in, or their live chat on the site. It allows you to like play games in the chat, and that's a very interactive Mr. Beast kind of, you know, vibe, right? That's what their customers want, is this interactivity, feeling like they're getting a little piece of like the Feastables world, which then leads more people to opt in to have access to that kind of thing. And so that's really what you need to be, when you see all of these examples, that's what you need to be thinking about, is which one of these is going to work the best for my customer. And then you're able to think about it instead of just like, oh, let me try all of these, and if it doesn't work immediately, oh, I'll give up and move to the next one. No, it's more about, okay, how do I try and see even an inkling of a positive result, and then keep testing that to optimize it, is really how you should be thinking about testing these different mediums. Figure out what's going to work for your audience, and then really try to find a way to make it something that is actually interesting, actually entertaining, actually has value to them, so that they're going to want to give you their contact info. Because that's, at the end of the day, what it's all about, right? Is like giving them enough value that they see a reason to actually let you into their inbox or into their phone or whatever.
Yep. Agreed. If you're using these tools, yeah, definitely be more, if you're doing something besides just, the standard 2-step pop-up, yeah, you definitely need to be thinking of like, I love the whole like add value. It's so important. Like, why does it, like, why should they give you their contact info? Especially if it's not just like, hey, get 15% off. Cool. All right, let's move on to. Well, first off, any questions? Anything?
Not at the moment. Rebecca had a question, but I answered it in the comments about preventing people from seeing pop-ups multiple times. I was just telling her, there's in that pop-up setup, you kind of looked at it briefly. You can choose what audience it goes to. You can choose people that don't have, that don't show to existing Klaviyo profiles, a few other options like that. So there's a lot of different things you can do.
Targeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to go and make sure this is selected.
But yeah, other than that, let's just keep going. On to the next tactic.
All right, let's talk about tactic number 3, warm-ups. So especially if you're a larger brand listening to this, or you have clients that are larger brands that have like tens of thousands or sometimes even hundreds of thousands of people on your email list, there's probably a large portion that I would call like unengaged, where they haven't opened or they haven't clicked in, let's say 90 days or something like that. And because of that, you're probably not sending emails to them, because you're probably sending to an engaged segment. And so basically you just have, like, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of people just sitting on your list, but they're actually dormant and you're not emailing to them. If you could, quote unquote, warm them up, then you should be able to increase the list size of every single campaign you send. And therefore, again, coming back to that whole hypothesis, if my list is bigger, then I'll make more revenue. This typically holds water and is true. We've done a bunch of warm-ups over the years, and the bigger you can get your engaged list, especially around large promotional seasons like Black Friday or the fourth quarter, typically the more revenue you'll earn in your campaigns. And we have an entire playbook on the warm-ups. Can be kind of confusing, but we have an entire playbook on it that you can download. And I'll quickly go through our warm-up playbook, but kind of like told you why you would need to warm it up. But again, you probably have, there's probably like 3 buckets of people that I would call unengaged on your list. There's unengaged customers, there's unengaged prospects, and then there's just dead weight. These are people who have received an email like 5 or 10 plus times, but have never opened, never clicked, never ordered, never gone to the site, never viewed a product. And these people probably actually need to be removed from your list, because not only are you paying for them, but it also could hurt your reputation. But yeah, basically what I like to do is like find these 3 buckets, like the dead weight, the unengaged prospects, the unengaged customers. And then I like to like sort of go out and come up with an attack plan to get these people warmed up. And normally I start with the customers. So think about it. Like if someone has bought from you, then they're way more likely to open and click an email than someone who's never bought from you. So that's why we start there. Like, who are unengaged customers? We break it up in, especially with the bigger brands, we break it up even into more buckets. Like, okay, who are my unengaged VIPs? Who are my unengaged repeat purchasers? Who are my unengaged one-time customers? And again, for some of our clients, this is literally like 50,000 people that we can break up into little buckets, and then we can send very minimal type of campaigns too. The goal is not to get them to buy right here. The goal is actually to get them to open, or even better, click, so they become engaged, and your engaged list becomes higher, or your engaged segment, like the count is higher. So we do a lot of this stuff with clients, and again, it's super minimal emails. It's a lot of segmentation work, but if you can slowly drip out these campaigns, you're going to see your engaged segment list get higher and higher and higher. And again, typically that higher the engaged segment list, the more revenue you're going to make. So here's like a case study on how we took one from, like, this is a smaller brand, but from 1,800 subscribers to 24,000. We took their 60-day engaged list by doing basically a lot of the stuff I talk about here. So yeah, you can download this whole entire playbook. I even have some Loom videos on it for you guys as well, just walking through how we've done this in the past. But yeah, you can, if you want that playbook, just head to this this URL we shared earlier, and you should be able to download the entire warm-up playbook. And again, this is the process our team uses internally. So we're sharing you exact same process we use internally that our team uses with our clients. That's the exact playbook we use. Any questions so far on the warm-ups?
Didn't get any questions on the warm-ups, but Paulina asked if we're going to be able to get access to this recording, and that is absolutely not a problem. Paulina will make sure that, first off, it stays up on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So you can always come back to this event to be able to watch it. But also we can DM you the actual link to like the StreamYard version of it too, if you want that as well.
Yeah. So you can come back and just come back to this event, and this recording will be there here for life. Just watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. One last thing on the warm-ups is I always like to think about it as have you watched Arrested Development, Will?
No, I know the show, but I haven't watched it. Yeah.
Okay. There's a famous quote from it of there's always money in the banana stand, which, you know, they thought it was like a figure of speech if you could always use the banana stand to make money, but he literally meant there's money in the walls of the banana stand. And that's how I kind of think about like your list sometimes, your unengaged list. You know, there is money in that unengaged list if you know how to use it, if you know that it's there and you know how to get it out. And that's what a list warm-up is all about. If you can just make sure that you do it the right way, you know, follow that playbook that we have. You know, there's a lot of money to be made in there with that, especially those unengaged prospects and the unengaged customers. If you can find a way to, you know, make yourself interesting again, or maybe you have a new strategy around email, you know, that's another great time to re-implement what you're working on re-implement a list warm up and get people out is after you've rebuilt your flows, after you have overhauled your strategy, or you decide on a new campaign strategy to send. That's the perfect time to do a warm up, because these people won't have seen that type of content before, and you want to get as many of them back into the fold as possible. And so it's a great tool to be able to kind of like breathe new life into an account. Especially for freelancers and agencies, if you're not doing a warm up, like, you know, pretty early on, if they have a big dormant list, then, you know, that's a missed opportunity and a great way to like deliver value to a brand immediately once you start working with them.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it can be a low hanging fruit project or like part of your scope.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on. Okay, let's talk about these anonymous email apps. It's controversial. I'm not like really necessarily the biggest fan of them, but I do think you should test them. And I do think there are ways to use them to effectively grow your list. So when I'm talking about like a lot of you guys probably heard of retention.com, or it used to be called like Get Emails.io. These are like the apps where they basically have a large pool, a large database of email subscribers. And if someone goes to your site and doesn't opt in, they can target them, like retarget them via email. Retention is really big. Wonderkind is another big one. OpenSend. There's a couple other ones. I think those are sort of the big three. my personal opinion, I'll get Brian's personal because there's different strategies here, but um, I prefer, so a lot of these apps, like you sign up or the client will sign up for them to use them, and then their team will set this up for you, which is great. That sounds great, like, oh wow, they're going to do all the heavy lifting. I don't have to do anything. I just sit back and the money comes in. Well, it's not that simple. So basically, a lot of times what they're doing is they're just duplicating flows that you already have live. Like, let's say you have a welcome flow, an abandoned checkout flow, and a browse abandonment flow. A lot of times these companies will go in and they'll just duplicate them and then create their own version with their own little event. So you'll literally have duplicated browse abandonment flow, duplicated um, a duplicated pre-purchase flow, and a duplicated abandoned checkout flow. And it gets really dicey, in my opinion. I've seen it go wrong more than it's gone right. I think that first off, logically, you have to make sure everything's right there. So you have to make sure, okay, if they're going down that browse abandonment flow, don't go around the actual browse abandonment flow. And I've seen a lot of people mess that up. The ands, the ors, the filters, the triggers, whether it's like someone on your team or someone at these companies. Or it's not even, sometimes it can just be like nobody even understands what's going on after it's been built, and then team members leave, and then no one really understands, so it can get very confusing really fast. So I'm going to give you my recommended setup, and then Brian, I want to hear your opinion. But I like to use these apps. I like to keep it super top of mind. I really only like to send 1 or 2 emails from these apps, and it's more of like a way to add value or start a relationship, like a letter from a CEO type email or something like that, instead of just duplicating all of our flows and now having like a retention.com or a WonderKind abandoned checkout flow. WonderKind's even worse. They like duplicate every email per flow. It's crazy. But yeah, so I think that I like to keep it simple, start there, and then expand. What do you think?
Yeah. This is a tough. So just first disclaimer, like
Yeah.
not necessarily recommending these apps or advocating or, say like this is a tactic that we know people use to grow their email list. Just as a disclaimer, because I'm also not, things are constantly changing, but I'm not positive along all ESPs how kosher it is to use these apps as well.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. So just do your research on all of this before you start. Retention, when it's built by, your team, there's definitely a lot of a bigger upside to it. And I think that's one benefit of retention. The other with WonderKind or Wonderkind, however you say it, it's I don't think it is possible to set it up on your own. At least from the experiences that I've had, I wasn't even as a third party able to be added to some of the accounts to even look at what's going on in there. Mm-hmm. It's a very kind of like black box experience. The brand would have had to give me an email within their brand for me to have access to it. So, it's a blessing and a curse. That's kind of how I look at these things is what's the goal here? Are you at the level where you have enough traffic that you're going to be able to identify a certain percentage of that and that's worth trying to convert it? I don't know if that's the answer for some bigger brand, for some smaller brands especially. And I would just approach with caution is really what it comes down to. And then, as you said at the bottom there, is if you are going to use it, it's just top of funnel. Because this is like the opposite of doing something like a FormToro or Octane AI type thing, right? Where I would look at somebody who's willing to go through a quiz or go through and give you a bunch of data as like a really high intent person. These are very low intent people. They have never given you their name or their number or their email address. And so the way that you interact with people like that needs to be very delicate. And that's not to say that you can't use it, but it's just hard to get right. And so I would consider this a a like level 3 or level 4 tactic as far as, if you go by our 4 levels framework. This is definitely a level 3 or level 4, not something you just like implement as soon as you start working on, putting together your first email marketing strategy.
Yeah, I think it's an advanced tactic. And one thing I thought you brought up a good point. It was like for smaller stores, it might not make sense. Like the only time I've seen it really, really work were for massive clients.
Yeah.
Like we were working with clients with like they were doing over $100 million type massive.
Right.
That's where I was like, okay, this justified it. Like the regular store doing like 5 million a year. I've heard a lot of problems with them.
Yeah, and actually, Mary just left a comment. Mary from Misen. Did you see that? Yeah,
no, I didn't see it. What did she say?
So she said they've used retention before. The Rev, their dashboard reports is over double what customers actually spend, and double unsub buttons on any emails coming from these apps as well. And they stopped using it because they felt like the risk didn't outweigh the benefits. So thanks for sharing that, Mary. I think that's a very common sentiment that we've seen with customers as well, where, we'll start working with them. They're already on retention. We're like, yeah, we can, kind of fix some of these flows for you and bring them over. But, we've had a few that we start and go through that process with them, and then it doesn't last that long. So it all depends. What's your risk tolerance? Almost like are you willing to kind of toe that line of the risk there? So yeah, I think that's probably enough on retention and these apps. Yeah.
Cool. All right. The next thing I would do next tactic would be, I think that this is like a big one that I really implore our clients to do, is to generate referrals, especially, shifting away from the retention.com, especially if you were like really white hat and you have a good product, you give a good experience. I really think brands should be leveraging this everywhere. And you'll see like the good ones do. This is Peace Out, a client we've worked with. Athletic Greens does this really well too. And I'll give you an example, but their whole referral program is everywhere. It's like, it's a footer on their website, or it's even in the header in their website. A lot of brands are triggering this referral in the checkout now. So after you're a first time customer, which I thought was interesting, but yeah, like a lot of times they will be doing this in the checkout or on thank you pages or in order confirmation templates or in the shipping notification if you're using something like Wonderkind or AfterShip. So they're literally peppering this all over the loyalty part of their funnel. Even doing it in the emails themselves, like I talked about that header bar where when you send an email to get people to subscribe to SMS, an email like cross-medium promotion. I've even seen like referral promotion. I've even seen brands have dedicated emails, whether it's a dedicated campaign to like VIPs or repeat customers, or it's a dedicated flow to VIPs and repeat customers to try and get referrals. And I would, if you want to get some inspiration, I would go through, I'm going to link to our YouTube channel where we do a lot of these funnel breakdowns. Like we recently did Skims, we did Liquid Death, we did Vacation. And a lot of times, like we will literally go through the entire funnel and the checkout experience and the like we literally bought the product. And so we see the whole entire funnel. And again, like a lot of these leading cutting edge brands are doing this right now. We're even doing it for some of our clients. We're helping them launch referral programs. And it's really the best way. It's one of the best ways to really grow a list, because you're really propagating this to people who are, VIPs, repeat customers. These are people who are what I would call raving fans, and they're the best people to really share your brand. And it can be done totally for free a lot of times, and then you have to pay for the app, or you have to pay for like the special offer if you're using that to generate the referrals. But it's a lot cheaper than advertising or something like that. Brian, what are your thoughts? Anything you want to add?
No, I think that was a pretty good overview. Yeah, I don't think that referrals have totally been unlocked yet, because what we're trying to do at the end of the day is like digitally prod someone to do word of mouth marketing, at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And I think the best referral program that you're ever going to have is having an incredible product. Um, the second best referral program that you're going to have is doing interesting things that people actually care about.
Yeah.
And then the third best thing is offering somebody a discount to send it to someone else. And so, at the end of the day, don't expect this to be the silver bullet in terms of your list growth.
No,
There will,
it's the fifth tactic. It's not the number one tactic.
right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's one to think about, and definitely something that you can try to get people to push more out and talk to others about your product. But I think we're coming more and more into like, I think it's more likely if you send out a cool email or a cool piece of content, that somebody's going to hear about your brand faster than a 15% off referral from somebody else. So take it with a grain of salt, and it's definitely an option for you to pursue. But that's really where I fall on it, at least.
Yeah. I think one thing I would share is just like I wanted to show kind of how Athletic Greens does it because I think they're one of the leaders I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
and I have their site pulled up. So first off, it's like in the actual, they have like a dedicated page for this, and
Mm-hmm.
it's in the actual. Back to the homepage. They have it in their footer somewhere. They have that, and then on the checkout, like or the thank you page of the checkout, this actually is it's not like an exit intent pop up, but it's like a triggered pop up that comes up. That's how they're doing it, and they're also when you manage your subscription. So if you're a subscription customer or if you're a subscription business, they have this whole section in their actual customer subscriber portal on how to sort of refer friends. So it's more about like kind of coming back to your point, Brian, of like really being like when you were talking about the forums and being intentional and adding value. It's like they've really thought out their referral program. I think a lot of brands
Mm-hmm.
just sort of like, oh, let's just sign up for a referral app, just like we signed up for
Mm-hmm.
SMS and loyalty. But being intentional, thinking about it, using it to add a good experience. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. The technology is not your growth lever at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so, if that's really the main point here is like, yeah, if you do it thoughtfully and you have, especially when you're at scale, I think referral programs are obviously going to be a lot more successful at a higher volume. Because you can't expect if you have 100 purchases per month or something like that even I would say maybe 2 people will refer somebody, and that's not moving the needle at all. But at the scale of Athletic Greens or something, it is a viable tactic, and so it's very much something, again, a level 3, level 4 type tactic that you want to consider. Before that, make sure you're really focused on product market fit, the messaging that you're using to get people to convert on the growth side, how you're actually communicating through your ads, what are the pain points that you're actually solving, the benefits of your product, because that's what's going to draw people in. Because if you hit those right people, they're automatic referrers, they're word of mouth people. Because if you're selling kayaks and you just sold the best kayak ever to a guy that kayaks every weekend, he's going to tell all his kayak buddies about the new paddle or whatever he bought from you. And so that's really where you should focus first. And then this is further down the line once you've gotten past those like early adopters.
Yep. All right. So let's sort of wrap up here. But yeah, my promise to you guys today was to show you how an agency like Flow Candy grows lists for clients. And again, you can totally take what we've done and implement in your own brand or agency. And I want to get to 2 special announcements that we talked about today. The first one is, are you still stuck? Like, you're like, hey, well, this is great. Like, I now have some ideas on how to generate lit or how to grow my list, but I still got to do all these flows and these campaigns, and I just busy. I don't know what to do. Um, well, I have some good news for you on this. So um, we actually have now come out with a free quiz for you to take. So this is basically Brian kind of talked about it earlier. At Flow Candy, we have a philosophy called the 4 levels. You can head to Flow Candy /4-levels to learn more. But yeah, I think a lot of brands, the reason we created 4 levels because we wanted to show where you're at, like what level you're at, and what should you do next. Because again, a lot of this stuff is confusing. Do I work on flows? Do I work on pop-ups? Do I work on loyalty? Do I work on segments? The 4 levels is designed to get you very, very clear. And we just came out with a quiz actually where you can do it. It's totally free and it'll score your strategy, your flows, your campaigns, your creative, your systems, your team, and it'll show you exactly what you need to focus on next. And again, you can take this. Well, again, this is for anyone who's a store or even an agency. If you want to do it for your or a freelancer for your client, but you can take this quiz again, totally free. You can just head right here, scan this QR code, or go to 4levels.scoreapp.com, and you'll land on this landing page. Just enter your information. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes, and it'll go through all these questions. It'll show you exactly where you are, and at the end, again, you will get a score, something like this, what percentage you're at, and you'll know, okay, well, our team is good, but maybe our creative and systems aren't good. Our strategy is really good, but we don't have the right segmentation. So yeah, we just launched this week. So go ahead. It's a free quiz. Just scan that app and take it here. And then we have another special announcement. Brian, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. So I'm super, super pumped. All right. So this has been such a fun, series for us to be putting together so far. We've done, I think this is like our 6th or 7th webinar this year. We've been kind of doing them every 2 weeks or so. And the exciting thing is now we're going to be actually partnering up with Klaviyo to do the next 3 that are coming out this spring. So we're working directly with Klaviyo. We're going to have some people from their team coming in and chat and adding their thoughts to the different stuff that we discuss. And so the first one, we are going to take a little bit of a hiatus as we plan this out. The first one is going to be early May. I think we're looking at the 8th of May as the next one to host with them. And so we're really, really excited about this to get some knowledge directly from the source. We're working with the team right now on planning. We've already planned out the topics. We got some cool stuff to chat with you guys about, and we'll get under the hood a little bit, even with Klaviyo as a platform itself, show you some cool features and things like that. And so yeah, we'll be back in about 3 weeks or so with the first edition of this Flow Candy Klaviyo webinar series that we're going to be doing together with them. So hopefully we'll see you guys at the next one. There will keep an eye out on both Will and I's, just LinkedIn posts, because we'll have an event up for this next webinar very soon. I think I'll actually even have it out tomorrow, and so we can start getting people on the list for that and get some cool stuff out that everyone really gets a lot of value out of, and will help you grow your brands. So yeah, pretty pumped.
Awesome, cool. And again, if you want to take that quiz, it's right here. I'll just leave that up for like a couple seconds. And then lastly, if you have not downloaded all the resources that we shared, you can do that here too. Again, that's our checklist, our playbooks. You can download the presentation slides here too that I shared. And lastly, if you want to watch the recording again, just come back to this event in LinkedIn, and you should be it'll be up there for live. So you just click the video to play, and you can rewatch it at your own pace. But yeah, that's it. Any other questions or comments, Brian, that we got?
We did actually have one. Let's see. Go back and find it. Oh yeah, Clayton. Clayton asked about how do you calculate the engagement rate for your brands, wanting to know how to best calculate and then segment the correct people.
calculate the engagement rate.
Yeah, that's a tough one just in terms of you really got to know it depends answer is
Yeah.
definitely the first part of that because what are you trying, engagement itself is malleable. It could be an open, it could be a click, it could, what do you actually want to rate that on? So I think we'd need more of a definition of the segment that you're actually trying to create with that. But Clayton, feel free to shoot Will and I a DM. I'm happy to discuss that out a little bit more with you, and we can talk about it. But yeah, I think that's everything for today. So I think we're good to go. Just under an hour, a little longer than we normally go, but hey, that's not a bad thing, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Good.
Well, yeah, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time, and have a great rest of your week.
Later.